Clinical research topic. In this topic, clinical research is said to be a systematic study for new drugs in human beings. This study of clinical research mainly generates the data for discovering and verifying the clinical, pharmacological, and adverse effects of a new drug. The new drug which is having some efficacy and safety also. This clinical research is used to find the advantages and disadvantages when it given to the particular person or volunteers. In this clinical research, the clinical research and clinical trials are two different processes. In clinical practice, treatments are used, while in clinical research, the evidence is collected to establish the treatment. Clinical research and clinical practice are two different topics. Where either it in clinical practice, the treatments are used, while in clinical research, the evidence is collected to establish the treatment. Clinical research is the first process, and after that, clinical practice and clinical trials will be performed. And here in clinical, what is the meaning of clinical? Clinical means treatment of patient. And while it comes to the research, the systematic investigation or the study of the facts to reach new conclusion. These clinical trials are Well, it comes to the clinical trials are close to clinical research. Clinical research, clinical practice, clinical trials. These are three different topics. Clinical trials as well as research in epidemiology, physiology and pathophysiology, the health service, health education and mental health can all fall under the clinical research. In order to accomplish the study of clinical research, one has to conduct the clinical trials. To study the clinical research of one has to conduct the clinical trials. As a research study, human volunteers are answered to specific health questions. Here, clinical trials are fastest way to find the treatment that work in people to improve the health. Clinical trials are final step, which is a long research process and that includes preliminary and laboratory research. After the research, the drug reached to the people or market, that is called as clinical trials. Here some objectives of clinical research, which helps to find the new therapeutic agent for human use and to help the toxicity of drugs, to help the study of mechanism of action, to study the site of action of drug, and also discovers the new use of existing agents. And this clinical research is used to establish the safety profile of new and old therapeutic agents and to discover the new and better techniques of experiments. What does mean of clinical trials? This is about the clinical research, and where it comes to clinical trials, what is the meaning of clinical trials? Clinical trials are simply said to be research studies in human volunteers to answer the specific health questions. For example, while a scientist who invented a drug, like for example paracetamol, that drug will be used for the volunteers and then they examine them and they will record their adverse effects, and therapeutic uses. Likewise, these clinical trials are performed. In these clinical trials, it is a simply we can say that clinical trials are research studies which is performed in the human volunteers to answer the specific health questions. They are primary way to researchers to find the new treatment like a new drug or a new diet. For example, a pacemaker which is safe and effective in people. Clinical trials are integral part of new drug discovery and development. Clinical trials involve the study of human subjects where the protocol designed studies are conducted which provide the information and data to support the National Drug Administration to Food Drug Administration. This is two types: interventional clinical trials and observational clinical trials.